The Pelicans have just announced they are shutting down Zion Williamson over further injury setbacks to his foot. But what you might not know is his particular injury is one of the most common found in court sports and also one of the most annoying to heal. Now, the bone in question that he broke, the fifth metatarsal, is a real pain in the neck, to be honest. There's several zones of this bone that can get injured, but the most troublesome fractures of this bone come at the junction of the tubular part of the bone and the base. Remember, all bones need blood to survive and especially to heal a broken bone. And in the fifth metatarsal, when you go back here in the bone, there's actually an area where there's a gap, where there's no real main artery supplying blood to that bone. And you guessed it, that's where most fractures occur. These fractures right here are called Jones fractures, named after the person that discovered them. And he first discovered them while ballroom dancing. And there's actually more in common than you think between ballroom dancing and basketball, because there is a lot of pivoting and moving in short shuffle steps in ballroom dancing as well as basketball. And that's how this injury occurs when your foot plants and then twists real quickly, just like when you're pivoting with a basketball in your hands. And this can happen one of two ways: when you plant and pivot really violently and this ligament under here pulls and cracks the bone, or number two, whereas what you just do it over and over and over again and it's more of a repetitive injury. Now, in Zion's case, he's going through a complication from this fracture in which his body is having trouble bridging the gap between those fracture ends, or where the bone broke, and that's called a delayed or non-union. And it once again comes from a lack of blood flow in that specific area. You can think of a broken bone trying to heal the same way a stone or brick wall is made. The cells in your body make the brick or stone scaffolding easily enough, but the blood, which acts like the mortar, needs to crisscross in between all those little nooks and crannies to hold that structure together and make it solid. But the really interesting part about the surgery, the rehab, and just the fracture itself is what people are doing now to try to get these rehabbed faster and get people like him back on the basketball court quicker. Since the metatarsal bones are tubular and there's this little gap right here that you can get a drill through, you can actually just throw a screw right down the pipe of this bone and compress that fracture. And that's a pretty common way to treat these. The bad part is you can actually break the bone again right where the tip of the screw is, and there's a little bit higher of a rate of what we call non-union, or when the bone just doesn't want to heal, especially in bigger athletes or people that are putting a ton of force and torque through their foot. But more recently, in athletes or people with high demand, we've gone to a little bit of a newer technique, which involves taking bone out of other areas of the body which has really high levels of growth factors and actually stuffing them into the site of the break and then putting a plate over top of that. What that does is it almost like tricks the body into producing more growth factors in that area, and it just kind of gives that area a little bit of a jump start versus just throwing a screw there and hoping that blood kind of gets there by diffusion. It's just a much more powerful way and quicker way to heal these. What that plate does is also it bridges the gap between the two areas that have good blood supply and kind of takes all the stress and strain out of that area so that you can rehab it faster. But sometimes, even with all this new biotechnology we have in modern medicine, well, sometimes the body still just doesn't want to heal, and you actually have to go back in and do repeat surgery to stimulate more growth and healing, or just get those fracture ends back together so that the body wants to heal. And especially in a professional athlete's case, sometimes the demand of the sport is just too much, and the recovery process just takes that little bit longer, because normally we're trying to get people back to activities of daily living, not playing professional NBA basketball. So you got to remember, the demands of basketball also place more demand on the bone and fracture healing process as well. So sometimes you just have to wait for the tincture of time to just do its thing. And I'm sure a question on a lot of Zion fans' mind is he ever going to come back? Will he be able to rehab this injury? And the answer is yeah, of course. He's young and healthy. Now, he does put a ton of demand on his foot. He is a big dude playing in the NBA, so it might take a little longer. It potentially could take repeat surgery or some more advanced therapies, but like I said, he is young and healthy, and there's no reason he shouldn't be able to come back and play high-level basketball. And if I was Zion Williamson's doctor, which I'm clearly not, but if I was, I'd probably be putting something in his shoe that did take a little bit more of the stress and strain off of that bone, something more of a rigid brace under his foot, or at least an orthotic with two pretty high sides. That way he's not getting a lot of that tilting in the shoe, and just something that can kind of take the force from his toes up to his ankle, bypassing this area. And remember, like I said, this is a pretty common injury in athletes. However, if you want to see something a little more outside the box in the world of basketball, make sure you check out this video about LeBron James's foot above and subscribe down below. I'll see you in the next video.